you. That's perfect. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to try it again. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, it's only a few of us, but we're going to act like it's a lot of us. You know, when we get together in fellowship, it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 200, we're going to have a good time, okay? I'm Kia Jarman. I am the facilitator for participatory budgeting, and I'm excited about this process because I've worked on lots of community engagement processes around the city, but this one I'm really excited about because of the wide range of ages that are involved. Before we get started, get into our presentation, I'd like to ask a few folks to come up and give greetings. One is our chair and co-chair of the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee. That will be Judge Rachel Bell. The chair and co-chair is Mr. Eric Capehart. Do you all want to come up and give greetings? And then I'll come back and we'll get greetings from Tennessee State University.
Good evening, everybody. We are very excited to have this opportunity for Bordeaux, North Nashville. I know this is a long time coming. We're glad that you are here, neighbors and friends, hopefully people that live in the mapped area so that you can help us with the decisions and ideas that you make for our community, hopefully to put the right resources, the right infrastructure, and some new ideas to help our growing community that I love so much. Again, I'm glad that y'all are here tonight. We look forward to having a good, purposeful meeting and something we can take away and give to our committee on this Thursday. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Eric.
So I just want to say thank you all for being here tonight with us. I always get excited when I see people who actually show up because it means that you care. And so we thank you for showing up and caring enough to be here tonight. We hope that this process is going to be something that we can all be proud of when we're done with it. And we look forward to many more projects in the future.
And the last thing I want to say, it's on Facebook. It's Metro Nashville Network. So if you go to your own Facebook account right now, they're going to be showing it live. That way we can get more reach for people that may need to stay at home with their family, their children. I know school just started, and so there's a lot of things going on. So please go on those Facebook pages, like Metro Nashville Network, and then also share it on your own personal pages. I would gladly appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, can I get Miss Aubrey to come on up? Aubrey Sells from Tennessee State University to bring greetings. And then when I come back, I'll do the presentation, but I also want to read off the names of the steering committee members. So just be tuned for that. Come on up.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me? I'm a little short, so can y'all hear me well enough? Okay, awesome. Alrighty, well, greetings. I am Aubrey Sells, a senior political science major minor in English from Huntsville, Alabama, and I serve as the Student Election Commission Chair here at Tennessee State University. I have a great honor of not only being a student and a leader, but also welcoming you guys to this illustrious institution. So welcome to Tennessee State University. Since its founding date in 1912, TSU has always been on the front lines of change and progress. This university breeds innovative ideas, solutions, and minds that have impact on our community and future. With Tennessee State University being located in the heart of North Nashville, I couldn't think of a better place for us all to join and have this important discussion. When I think about the needs of North Nashville, I think back on my own experiences as a student. For example, TSU is located in a food desert. We are surrounded with fast food restaurants that lack nutritional value. The closest grocery store is 1.5 miles away, and with many students not having transportation or cars, they have to find other means to get there. This can discourage many from wanting to eat healthy. Oops, sorry, I think I might have changed slide, my bad. And as we all know, health is wealth, and what you eat has a direct correlation with life expectancy and diseases. This is just one example, but I think about how if we would have created a solution by providing a grocery store, how many lives would have been affected and changed forever? This one example shows the importance of us all being here today and how one decision can change lives forever. I am so excited and honored to be here and actively participate in this conversation, and I encourage you all to do the same. I am Aubrey Sells, and welcome. And I'm sorry about that.
I'm getting back here, changed out masks so we can remain in compliance. All right, let's get started. I first want to read off the names of the steering committee members. If you're here, raise your hand so people can know who you are and also hold you accountable. Charles Scott, thank you, Mr. Scott. Lavinia Harrison, I believe she's watching. Eric Capehart, we've seen you, hello. Alusha Latribble, Deshaun Keys, who has been so wonderful in helping us today. He works here at Tennessee State. Lurley Cleveland, Dolores Donegan, thank you, Ms. Donegan. Judge Rachel Bell, we've seen you today, thank you. George Ewing, Dr. Ronald Wooding, Alandis Brassel, hello, good to see you back there. Sharika Roby Grant, Stephanie Nesbitt, Legra Newman, Janet Parham. All right, thank you, Ms. Parham. So that's your wonderful steering committee members. And part of this process is about communicating with them and also sharing thoughts and ideas and things that you have with them as you work through this process. So I'll just very briefly take you through some education about participatory budgeting. If you have questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end, and then we'll get you acknowledged there. Before I get started with any process, I like to do community agreements. So I want to make sure. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brandon. Is it moving? Okay, perfect. Community agreements, perfect, thank you. So this process is led by North Nashville and Bordeaux residents. And during this process, we'll do a few things. We will work collaboratively. One thing I know, 100%, my grandfather would absolutely get me if I didn't talk about the collaborative nature of us even being here at Tennessee State University. But I know this community comes together and makes sure that we all are working in collection and collectively with each other. So we want to make sure that happens. We want to work transparently. This is part of the reason why you have an amazing steering committee. Part of the reason I'm here to serve as a liaison with the mayor's office and the departments. And then, of course, part of the reason that you all are here as residents of the community. We want to be transparent. So if any point in time through this process you don't have that experience, let someone from your steering committee know, or you can also let myself know. And we will work thoroughly. We want to be very diligent in this process. That's why we want so many ideas from so many of you. So I'm encouraging you, before we get you started, I want to do something else. You see this document here? Some of you picked it up. If you didn't, we'll get you a copy of it. While you're here, go ahead and begin putting those ideas in. That's the thorough nature of what this is going to look like. So I want to make sure we have those agreements. Everybody feel good about that? We're going to do that through this process. Shake your head, do your thumbs up. I know we've been Zooming a long time, but I like to see you in person. Perfect. Thank you. Next one, bro. Go click on that and see if it will open. Thank you. So I'll give you a brief video on participatory budgeting. Okay. If it doesn't, that's okay.
It gives people real power over real money to make the decisions that affect their lives. First, people brainstorm ideas. They come together in neighborhood assemblies and think of what kinds of projects would they like to see in their neighborhood. Volunteers take people's initial ideas and turn them into real projects. And they bring them back to the public for a vote. The projects with the most votes get funded. They are then implemented over the next few years, and the following year, the process starts again.
Wonderful. And we'll push forward, Brandon, please. So what does that mean? I know that that may have been very short and maybe not even able to hear as much, but I'll go through some of the details here. What does this mean for Nashville? In last year, or what would be last year, or the fiscal year, Mayor John Cooper allocated $2 million to fund this particular pilot project in Nashville North and Bordeaux community. And then the Metro Council was able to approve that capital spending plan and budget. And so that's what this process really is about, is saying what does the community, what the community like to see, and then how can they then put their voting power into action. Let's keep going, Brandon. So I want to give you an outline of the space. And so we have a map outside because this is kind of teeny tiny, and I recognize that. So you'll see the highlight there of the space, or the boundaries rather, of Nashville North as well as Bordeaux. And so we want to make sure that through this process, as I mentioned, it's resident led. So if you're in this community, this is how you get a chance to make sure you have the infrastructure improvements that you like to see happen. If you're outside of the community, that does not mean you don't get a chance to participate. You just participate differently. You can come in and help with logistics, or you can come in and volunteer your time to set up an event or something like that. But in terms of how the project's process is going to go, it's led by people who live right in the demographic boundaries. And then it's also the budget delegates, those people who are going to help put together the proposals, those are people who live right in the boundaries as well. We'll push forward. Yes, ma'am, I sure can. What this map shows is it's the same map, but what it will show you is other capital spending improvement projects that are happening. So you see every little blue and red dot or blue line are other places where the mayor's office has designated infrastructure improvement. So this is in addition to that. And that's really an important part of this process for you to understand, is that this is going to be an additional ability for you all to manage how the infrastructure will be improved in your community. So there are some requirements. There are some eligibility requirements for this to work. It has to provide a primary benefit for the public at large. This means it's not going to go in my backyard, or this is not going to necessarily be for one person's benefit. This is really how we think about community. This is how we think, how does the maximum benefit for the maximum people? It provides a tangible and permanent benefit. This means we're not going to pick it up tomorrow and move it. This is something that has some sustainability. It's going to last some time, again, so that the community is better based on that. And it's going to, I want to highlight this last bullet in particular, that it's going to have to cost $50,000 or higher, and the lifespan of at least up to 10 years. Okay, so how does this happen? The budget delegates will put all those ideas together, all those proposals together that you all will submit. I know you're submitting now. They'll put all those together, and they will begin to work with Metro departments to make sure that it is going to be $50,000 or exceeding of that. Okay, so don't be concerned if you have an idea that you think might not make it. Still submit that idea for me. So what's the process going to look like? I'm going to show you here, and then I'm going to also show you on a timeline, because everybody learns differently, right? So we're going to ask residents, those of you sitting here, to look within your community, think within your mind. What is that project you've always wanted to have happen? Brainstorm that. This is the very first public event that we've had. So you're the very first ideas that will be in the system. We'll take those ideas from now until about October. At that time, volunteer budget delegates, that is again, people like you sitting in this room, people from this particular community, will then work with Metro staff and departments to develop and to make sure that we vet those ideas to get the formal proposals that will then at some point, go on the ballot. In December, there will be a ballot put together in which Nashville North and Bordeaux residents get an opportunity to vote. And this is what I meant by I really love this project, because it's where 14 years and older will be able to vote. So if you've done community engagement for any amount of time, if you've been to meetings, you know voice is important, but vote is impactful. So this is where people get a chance to really push the button to say, this is what I'd like to see happen. And of course, you can email that email there at the bottom and it's on all the documents, and we'll make sure you receive it. If you have questions or if you want to troubleshoot, if technology starts to act a little wonky, let us know. Let me show it to you just in a very different format. It's the same information. I'll breeze through it, but I want you to see it in a couple of ways. The steering committee came together in July to create rules. So in participatory budgeting process, you have a rule book. It's a set of guidelines that allow the process to be efficient. As I mentioned earlier, make sure it's transparent, make sure it's thorough. That happens. So that document helps guide our work. We then, from today until October, have idea collection. Then we move into proposal development, where our delegates, again, who live right in the community, are able to develop the proposal that will then go to the ballot. And then you vote as a community. After that point in January, what we want to see, because again, this is a pilot project, we need to show that this is really important to continue to have infrastructure improvements in this community. So what we'll do is we want to hear from you. What's your feedback? How did it go? Does it need to have something better? What really well? Give us all of that feedback so that we can make sure that it goes back to the mayor's office as they are thinking about additional budget improvements or budget allocation, excuse me. And then at the end of this week, there will be documentation sent to Metro Council so they can begin to endorse the rule book. That should come up on the ballot. Keep your ears peeled, but it should come up on the ballot in September. But if you signed in, I'll make sure that you're aware of when that's going to happen, just so that you're abreast of the process. Sorry, next slide. And then, yeah, here we go. Thank you. Roles and responsibilities. So this is a place where, again, you can see how it all works together. You've heard the names of our steering committee members. You've seen our chair and co-chair today, and so they really are going to be the foundation for this process. There are those of you sitting here or on Facebook, which I hope that you like, share, and comment so that we can continue the conversation, that are residents, and we are encouraging you to submit ideas into the Hub Nashville website. Okay, Hub Nashville, I'll get to that in just a moment. At that point, we also have volunteers, our budget delegates, and our Metro staff who all come together to make sure those ideas are vetted, so that make sure they can be the money is allocated, make sure that the budget is what it needs to be, make sure that everything is in compliance with the eligibility standards and that rule book. The Metro staff will then monitor and help us coordinate logistics, and the mayor's office, of course, will provide some administrative support. And then Metro Council has already approved the capital spending. So you can see how this process is working. Next slide, please. Okay, good. So you can see, so the question I hope you're asking is, well, how do I get to work? So I've already talked to you about the steering committee. Those have been designated already. But we have a few other places where we really need your support. Budget delegates. We need people who live within the Nashville North and Bordeaux boundary to be budget delegates. That is a very important position to make sure that, again, the proposals are put together in a way that can go to a vote before the community. Next, we have committee facilitators. That is if you want to volunteer overtime, you'd like to participate in helping facilitate some meetings, you'd like to set the meeting agenda. This is a place for those of you who said, well, you know, I have at my faith institution, we have a Bible study or a reading. We'd love for you to come. This is where you have a barbershop or a hair salon. This is where you have a school, like Tennessee State University or K through 12. This is any place in the community where you're already doing things, and you can help us in being the support in that way by setting up those events and welcoming us in. And then if you want a shorter term relationship with us, which is okay, we ask that you set up the logistics for a one-time event. You say, I want you to just come to, my event, my place, my park, my what have you, and we'll do that as well. We can come and do this presentation, or we can come and just be ready to receive ideas. Whatever you will work with you to make sure whatever works best for the community. Next slide, please. I've already talked about project eligibility, but it's important to get here one more time, and I want to just highlight a few more points that have already been highlighted, but I just want to give it again. This cannot result in any private benefit for anyone. That is including those people who are budget delegates, those people who are volunteering, providing logistics, committee facilitators. None of those folks can benefit from this process. This is totally a community-driven process. So I want to just emphasize that one more time. Okay, Brandon, if we'll go forward, please. As I already mentioned, budget assemblies are where the idea collection will happen. This is, again, where you can invite us into your space. One of the things I'm probably going to do, because as you see, we are still in COVID. So I will be hosting some Zoom opportunities for people to come and just present their ideas there, ask questions, any place where we can be safe, where people can still get education and information. I will make sure that that happens. Next, please. Again, this is really important, the proposal development. So I want to highlight a couple of things on this particular page. Once all of the proposals are in, then the budget delegates will work with Metro departments to make sure that we have the adequate funding in place. And so what does that mean? Or the adequate budget in place? What does that mean? What that means is we don't want an idea to get to the ballot and then we haven't, we've undercompensated or we've asked for something. We want to make sure that it has the opportunity to make it to the ballot and actually be implemented after the vote has happened. So our budget delegates will work with our Metro departments to ensure that that happens. Go forward twice for me. One more, just one more. Yeah, Hub Nashville. So let's take just a second here. I'd like for you all to pull out your phones if you are interested in technology. If not, we have paper versions as well. If you picked up this document or this pamphlet when you came in, then you would see, if you got to that middle fold, you'll see a QR code. If you have your phone, you can go ahead and scan that. Okay. And I'm going to give you some seconds. This is kind of like in class. I'm going to give you a second to get it done. Open up Hub Nashville. It'll then take you to the participatory budgeting link. You can click on that and begin submitting ideas. I'd like to have them run me a report in the morning knowing we have a few ideas in already. Is anybody interested in a paper copy, paper version, so you can write your ideas tonight? Okay, we have one right here. Let's get a few. We have one here. I want to make sure that we get the paper copy to you. We have one here. Excellent. Just want to give everybody opportunity because all of the ideas are important. Thank you, Seth, for that. Okay, if you have any challenges with the Hub Nashville process, so once you get registered in, if any problem you have there, please let myself know or someone from the steering committee so that we can get you in the system. We don't want any ideas not to go through, okay? Let's push forward. The last point here is just about once those ideas go onto the ballot and get voted on, what might happen is we need to go back to Metro Council and then ask for some additional legislative action or some additional parameters there. We won't know. Again, this process is totally transparent. Nothing is baked in. We have no idea what you're going to submit. Once that happens, though, the budget delegates will work with Metro staff, council, and all the other parties to make sure that we're able to get those things in. One last slide. And before we get to question and answer, I have to just say thank you for coming, for being here and being a part of this process. It is really important. As I think about what community looks like, it looks just like this, looking out at faces of people who are very interested in themselves and future generations. When you think about infrastructure, I know that we often tout about Nashville, the sky rises and the cranes in the sky. But what really makes us important, what really makes infrastructure happen, is those projects, those everyday uses that our young people have. Can they cross the street safely? Can they get to school with no issue? Do they have lights on their street so it's safe? You know, all of those things are the infrastructure things I want you to be thinking about. But also get innovative. I see some creative folks in the room. be unlimited in your thinking. Put those ideas to paper so that we can really give the budget delegates a great opportunity to go through those, okay? So with that, I'm going to ask, are there any questions that yes, ma'am. We have a microphone here if you'd like to do that so that the camera can get you. Of course, if you're on Facebook, please make sure you like, comment, and share so we can get the word out here.
Of the 2 million, because depending upon the area, it would be helpful if people knew how much money is already being allocated in the budget for the areas with a breakdown of the amount where the money is being spent. Because suppose someone wanted to do something for Hartman Park, but the mayor has already allocated money, or there's already money allocated for the area, they may decide somewhere else, or they may decide they want to add more to it to make it a better project. So it would be helpful if there was a way to get a breakdown of each area that's in the participatory budget, how much money is already being allocated for those areas, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Fabian, is there a particular answer to that other than for me to say that's a follow-up that I'd like to be able to do? I think it's a very important question. So just in case anybody didn't hear, making sure that we have a breakdown of infrastructure improvements, capital spending in that area already, so that you can know how to propose ideas. Is that correct? Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to write that down here in just a moment, and we'll make sure we do a follow-up. Please make sure that you put your email information on the sign-up out front so that we can make sure that you get that update. Other questions? Yes. Yeah, so the question for everyone and for those on Facebook was that the project that he is looking to propose is along a state highway. And so he's asking about how we are to work interactively with those other departments. I'm going to pass it over to Fabian to answer.
Great question. When the budget delegates go through the eligibility process, they are going to work with the different departments, including TDOT, to see if that's an eligible project. So it will come down to the moment when the ideas are collected and they run them by the different departments to see if they are eligible. Eligibility was decided by you on the steering committee, or is being decided by you on the steering committee through the guidebook that you guys are putting together.
Thank you for that, Mr. Capehart. Any other questions? Yes, will you come to the mic here, please? Thank you.
It's more of it's a question, it's a comment,
okay.
But I'm gonna ask it as a question because I think it's important if any constituents have projects that do not amount to $50,000, that we are able to pair them with other projects to come up to that $50,000 quota. So if you could speak on that piece.
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes. So what would happen, what I would suggest doing is to submit the idea, no matter the cost, and allow the budget delegates to put those ideas together to come up to the 50,000. Okay, so I don't want anybody to not submit an idea because they think, oh, it's not up to the eligibility point. Let the budget delegates do that particular part because that's exactly what they're there for, is to make sure that happens. So thank you for that question. Yes, ma'am.
Hey. Hey, everybody. I'm Angel. I've got a few questions. The first one is about transparency because there were 14 appointments made. So how was transparency in that process?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to ask that to the mayor's office about the 14 appointments of the steering committee members because that was prior to myself. Thank you for that question. And I know you have a few more, so you can just hang tight and Fabian's going to answer there.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have 18 steering committee members. Most of them were recommended by the local council members, and then some of them were recommended by people on the staff and we actually started with many more. We engaged with all of them, asked them for information. Some of them didn't reside in the participatory budgeting area, so we thanked them for their interest, but we couldn't include them. And some of them, when they learned of the commitment, they also said they wanted to do it, but they couldn't do it. So it was an ongoing process. It took a while, but we ended up with 18 very committed, very interested members that were recommended mostly by the council members.
Thank you. And just to add a layer to that, in addition, there are other opportunities to be a part of the work. And so I want to just highlight that again, that they're the budget delegates who are absolutely from the community. They have to be residents within the boundary space, and they will have a really active participation in making sure that this gets done. Those committee facilitators, and then also those logistics volunteers as well. So I just want to give some layers there. Thank you. Did you have another question?
There was a concern about conflict of interest of those who sit on the committee.
Okay. Tell me, can I double click there? What does that mean?
A conflict of interest to put forth ideas.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the idea of conflict of interest in putting forth ideas, meaning the concern is people who are sitting on the steering committee have a vested interest in okay, got it. I wanted to make sure I understood.
That is a really good comment. Thank you for making that comment. Steering committee member and budget delegates are on the rule book. It spells out that they may not submit ideas and support those ideas because it will be a conflict of interest. So as you read through the rule book that the steering committee is finalizing, as a matter of fact, this Thursday is the last meeting they're going to have about it. It very clearly spells that out. So if anybody violates that, they will be in trouble. So I'm glad you bring that up because the steering committee is already agreeing to exclude that from any possibility.
You go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead.
Lastly, it's a question about capital infrastructure and improvement. So if the mayor's office or the city council already has a plan for long-term or short-term goals to do capital improvement within one of the 5 districts that are in the map, is there a way that we can have access to that so that we're not overlapping?
Yeah, I think that was also the question that came up a moment ago. And so we will, that's something I'll work on with the mayor's office. I'll be the liaison on that. And I think I saw you sign in. We talked at the table. So we'll make sure we get you a copy of that. If you don't get it, because that means maybe it went to spam or something like that, feel free, please, to email that pb@nashville.gov email address. And we want to make sure that we get that to you. So thank you for that question. Yes.
Yes. I just want to know how are they deciding the rules? Can we submit ideas for the rules? I want to make sure that North Nashville residents get first opportunity to take part of these contracts to do this capital investment and not just, they say that these people do it. I want that should be in the rule book or something. How can we go about submitting something about that?
Can I have you come back for just a second? Just because I want to clarify, because I heard a couple questions in there, and I want to clarify because I'm going to ask Fabian, but I want to make sure. So one was about, can you seeing the rules, so the rule book, which the steering committee is putting together and putting last touches on. And then I also heard something about making sure who gets the access to do the project. Did I hear that? Okay, so
yes.
Who gets access to?
No, it's basically wanting to make sure that in the rule book of when they're doing stuff, that the first person to get access to funds to do these projects are North Nashville residents who own businesses or whatnot.
Okay.
So that we can keep the funds in the community.
Got it. I wanted to make sure I clarified what you were asking. Thank you for that.
That is also a great question. And as a matter of fact, the rule book is put together by local residents. And one of the comments they brought up during the meetings is that they wanted to see happen what you indicated. They wanted to make sure that local residents had a priority in bidding for these projects. By state law, we cannot do a lot of that, but we are going to try to do a lot of advocacy and try to encourage local contractors to bid on these projects, but we cannot, by state law, limit who bids on projects to local residents. I mean, I would love to do that, but it's not permitted by state law. However, I can tell you that that was something that the steering committee spent a lot of time talking. I don't know if anybody on the steering committee wants to address that, but they were very interested in that very same thing.
Mr. Scott, would you go to the microphone there, or I can give you this one?
One of the things that we talked about on that level was making sure that our people knew how to become vendors for Metro. So we were going to have training or some kind of guidelines so they'll know where to go and how to become vendors so they can bid on the projects.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any last questions? Excuse me. I want to be mindful of your time this evening so we can stay as long as you need to, but I also want to be mindful. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
How will you make sure that each area, because I'm assuming that each area like Bordeaux, they're going to want the same amount as another area, So let's say the 2 million, if you split it equally between each area, suppose it goes over just a little bit for one area, would the mayor's office be willing to make up maybe that 5%? I mean, how would that work to make sure that each area gets an equal amount and that no one feels like they've been shortchanged?
Thank you. I'll let Fabian speak to that.
Right now, there is no restriction, but the steering committee is not done. The steering committee may choose to come up with a rule that ensures that minimum amount of money is being spent in each district. Now, keep in mind that the districts are not the same, and they're getting ready to be redistricted. So how do you decide what is a fair distribution of the funds? But it's up to the steering committee. So I'm sure Kia is going to communicate this to the steering committee members for them to consider as they look at the voting portion of the process, which it comes in December, if that's a consideration that they want to use. But it's something that I've been struggling myself, and I think it's an important question.
Yes, thank you for that. Come on, Miss Angel, you good? Just take your time.
I used to be way more agile than this. So this is in regards to collaborative natures and communication, because I've been to every meeting and I've left my email, but I didn't receive an email about this meeting, and I don't think one came through Nashville.gov either. My goal is to get our 14 to 18 or 14 to 24-year-old age group really involved in this. So is there a communication plan?
Hi, how are you? So, by trade, I am a communicator, professional communicator. And so I do a lot of communication, community engagement. So prior to this week, end of last week, this week, we did not have a person to do that liaison work, and that is exactly what I'm here for, is to make sure that we specifically work. So not just that I want you to get a blanket email about here's the next event, but then also I want to pinpoint how we can connect around that 14 to 24-year-old age group. You know, what does that look like? I think we talked about, you know, coming out to the mural. What does that mean? And so we want to work collaboratively in that way for sure. And so just bear with me a little bit as I get my bearings over the next week. But the idea is absolutely that we do some regular communication on some type of rhythm. And so that is something I'm absolutely interested and excited about doing to make sure that, again, that transparency and collaboration is happening. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yes, that's fine. Come on. Thank you, Judge Bell, for keeping us honest, because we want to make sure people at home can hear too. So thank you for that.
So you were saying that you're going to be doing more communication. Are you all able to do things at certain events and stuff? Because I know with school coming back in, there's going to be homecoming, there's going to be African Street Fest, which would be great places to put info out and get votes in. Do y'all have the ability to set up at those events and others in the neighborhood that are happening to, you know, help facilitate this process?
Yes, so don't you leave until we get your name as a volunteer. Because you're going to be on our logistics team. See how this works? You see how this works so beautifully, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do, right? So I want to work with people like yourself who already are tapped in. You already know what's going to happen with the Africa Street Festival. You already know where the events are going to happen. And so it might not always be myself. The steering committee, we have 18 qualified, amazing people to do that. We have folks like you who know this neighborhood front and back. We want to make sure that we can set up absolutely wherever we can. We don't want to reinvent wheels. We want to go places where folks already are and then be able to collaborate. So any of you in this room, if you have a event that's happening safely, if you have again, your faith institution has something we can come to, any of those things, if you have a school where you have a parent evening, let us know so that we can absolutely either be there or provide you as a community resident the materials that you need. And again, we'll work in collaboration with each other to get you everything you need if one of us can't show up. But we also hope to have someone from the steering committee or myself to be as many of those as possible. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Now don't leave. I got to see you got the North shirt on, so I know I'm going to get you on the list when we get done. Yes, Mr. Holloway.
There have been some complaints along some of the residents in the King Lane area about when they have a heavy rain, there's some flooding issues. Hopefully that will fall on some of the guidelines that we can use some of that budget to try to eliminate some of the flooding area. If we can, I don't know what need to be done, but I've been in several community meetings, and this has been one of the complaints about some of the flooding in Kings Lane. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. So that cues me up again. If you need a physical document so that you can write your idea out, even if it's, I'd rather you write down flooding on Kings Lane, how do we remedy? And that be your first idea. And then as this process continues between now and October, you can begin developing more thoughts around it as you talk to other neighbors and other people in your community. So again, I hope that you picked up this document, this pamphlet when you came in. And inside of it, you're going to have the QR code there that you can scan. Just in case you are like myself and trying to figure out how you scan the QR code, just open your camera on your phone, hover it over. It will then give you a link to click. It's very simple. But again, we have the paper copies as well. So thank you for that, that note there. What I want to make sure happens, because again, I share with you, I've done lots of these. Some of you, you've been on the trail with me for a long time, from Nashville Next to planning to transit to arts to parks. Okay, lots of processes. And what I want to make sure happens is we don't just come in this room and talk about it. Get on the app for me or put it on the paper and make sure it's written down. Make sure it's written down. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my question is, how in-depth is the proposal to be? Because when you say proposal, most people think that you have to write, 5 or 6 or 10 pages of something. So how in-depth
Thank you.
does it need to be?
Absolutely awesome question. So let the budget delegates write the proposals. You submit the ideas. So just like with the Kings Lane piece, what I was mentioning, Kings Lane needs flood remedy, right? Because someone else is going to potentially have another idea or thought that can then allow the budget delegates to put that together. So I don't want anybody in this room to be detracted from submitting an idea because it's got to be lots of papers. No, submit the idea, and then when you get more thoughts about it, submit it again. Submit another idea that expands on it, because again, the budget delegates are going to do their job, which is to put it all together for you. Okay.
I just want to make it clear, because Fabian just refreshed our memories, and some of us may not still remember, but if you're a member of the steering committee, please be careful not to submit an idea, because if you do, then you're going to get kicked off the steering committee, right? So make sure that you communicate with your neighborhood associations, your friends, family that live in our community, so that they can submit the ideas. Then the budget delegates will look at it. They'll submit the proposals and tidy them up, like Ms. Jarman is saying. And then the logistics, they will help facilitate. And then the steering committee will then present those eligible ideas to the mayor's office to then help make those decisions, right? So we need to be careful that we don't get all excited because we live here, we live in the community, that we submit ideas because we will get kicked off the steering committee, okay? Now, if you don't want to be on the steering committee anymore and you want to submit ideas, please let Fabian know so we can figure that out. But I just want us to be careful not to do that, okay?
Thank you for that clarity, which brings me back to the volunteering. If you have which most of you do, a community group or a neighborhood association where we can come and present and you can do the introduction, then we absolutely can get the ideas from the community that get submitted in. So we want to make sure we're, again, in compliance with that rule book that the steering committee's put together. Okay, one last question, if at all, and then I will take us out of here.
Mine isn't a question to Sean Keys from the steering committee. There are several lists the steering committee members have been submitting of events that we're able to be more in the community. And the chief student affairs officer here at Tennessee State has given us full access here. So there are some areas that you'll be able to see the steering committee more often, directly with Fabian and our amazing leaders up here that y'all have already seen today.
Thank you for that, Mr. Keys. So again, thank you for providing us access to this space and for TSU, and thank you, Ms. Sales, for that helpful introduction. If you weren't here for that, I hope that you will go back and listen. She gave some ideas even in that introduction that you may go back and may spark something for you as you're thinking about that. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Again, if you're on Facebook, please like, comment, and share. Keep the conversation moving and going. Go ahead and get on the Hub Nashville website. If you have not already done so, you can do the QR code or turn in your paper with us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Hopefully you'll have us out to do something in your community or in your neighborhood. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.net.